The neon glow of Chicago's skyline spilled through the window of Emily Harper's studio apartment, casting shadows on the sketches scattered across her desk. At 33, Emily sat there, pen in hand, her latest interior design project, a sleek Manhattan penthouse, coming to life under her steady strokes. Each line felt like a rebellion, a quiet defiance of the life she'd been told to live. Her story wasn't just about chasing dreams, it was about shattering expectations in a small-town Texas world that wanted to keep her in a box. Back in Round Rock, Texas, Emily grew up in a family where tradition was king. Her parents, Diane and Robert, ran a tight ship. Robert, a no-nonsense real estate developer, and Diane, a homemaker with a knack for hosting flawless Sunday dinners, had a clear vision for their only daughter: attend a top-tier school like Baylor or SMU. Land a stable desk job with a 401k. Marry a dependable guy by 28. Pop out a couple of kids. And settle in a house close enough for Diane to drop by with her famous pecan pie recipe. At every family gathering, over plates of brisket and mashed potatoes, the question came like clockwork: so, Emily, what's your 5-year plan? It wasn't just curiosity, it was a test. In the Harper household, daughters didn't stray, they followed the script. Emily, though, was different. As a kid, she'd sneak into her dad's office, not to read his contracts but to doodle floor plans on the back of his legal pads. She loved colors, textures, the way light could transform a room. But in Round Rock, those passions were cute hobbies, not a career. Art was for dreamers, not Harpers. So, Emily played along, enrolling in finance at the University of Texas at Austin, a choice that earned her parents proud nods. But by her senior year, at 22, the weight of that life felt like a noose. Sitting in a lecture hall immediately grabbed her attention. Listening to a professor drone on about market trends, she felt trapped in a future she didn't want. Every night, she'd lie awake, her heart racing with a single question: is this really it? One humid Texas afternoon, Emily made a choice that would change everything. She marched into the registrar's office and switched her major to interior design. When she broke the news at dinner, the silence was deafening. Diane let out a sigh so heavy it seemed to carry the weight of all her disappointments. Robert, fork paused midair, stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "You're throwing away a secure future to rearrange furniture?" he said. His voice flat but sharp. The words stung. But Emily didn't argue. She'd learned long ago that arguing with her parents was like shouting into a void. Instead, she packed a single suitcase, said goodbye to the sprawling ranch house she'd called home, and boarded a bus to Chicago with $800 in her savings and a fire in her chest. Chicago was a shock to the system. Her tiny studio apartment smelled of stale coffee and had a view of a brick wall. She landed an unpaid internship at a boutique design firm, spending her days fetching coffee and her nights sketching until her fingers cramped. Her parents didn't let up. Diane emailed her articles like, "Top Careers for Women in 2025, or, Why Settling Down Early Pays Off." Robert called once a month. His voice clipped, asking when she'd come to her senses. But in Chicago, away from the suffocating expectations of Round Rock, Emily felt alive. She was no longer the dutiful daughter playing a role, she was becoming herself. The work was grueling but exhilarating. Emily learned to pitch ideas to clients over Zoom, navigate time zones for international projects, and turn criticism into fuel. By 25, she'd landed her first solo gig, a cozy Brooklyn cafe that got a write-up in Dwell. By 27, she was collaborating on a Seattle tech startup's headquarters, then a London boutique hotel. Her portfolio grew, her reputation soared, and her bank account finally stopped teetering on empty. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. Each project was a brick in the life she was building, one that didn't look anything like the one her parents had planned. But back in Texas, her success was invisible. To Diane and Robert, Emily's life was a fantasy, a house of cards waiting to collapse because it lacked the one thing they valued most: a husband. At 30, when Emily skipped Thanksgiving to finalize a contract for a boutique hotel chain in Aspen, Diane sent her a text that cut deeper than any lecture. if you're choosing work over family. Who's going to be there for you when this all falls apart? Emily read it in her hotel room, the Colorado mountains looming outside her window, and felt a pang of guilt mixed with defiance. She'd spent years trying to explain her passion, her drive, but her parents saw only what she hadn't done. No ring. No kids. No picket fence. To them, her life was a puzzle missing its most important pieces. Sitting in that hotel room, Emily realized something painful but freeing. Not everyone would understand her. Her parents wanted the Emily who'd fit their mold, not the one who'd broken it. But she wasn't turning back. She'd chosen her path, and every late night, every rejected draft, every hard-won client was proof she was right. As she closed her laptop and stared at the snow falling outside, Emily knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Her family's doubts would follow her, their voices echoing in every phone call, every holiday she skipped. But she also knew something they didn't. She was building something real. Something hers. And no amount of size or articles could take that away. Emily Harper stood in the dimly lit corner of her Chicago studio, staring at a photo on her phone. It was her and Nathan Carter, her fiancé, laughing against the glittering backdrop of Singapore's Marina Bay. His arm was around her, his smile warm and real. But to her family back in Round Rock, Texas, Nathan was a myth, a figment of Emily's imagination, conjured to mask her failure, to follow their script. At 33, Emily had built a thriving interior design career, with projects spanning from Miami to Milan. But to her parents, Diane and Robert, her life was incomplete without a husband. And when she told them about Nathan, an international aviation consultant splitting his time between Singapore and Dubai, their skepticism cut deeper than any criticism of her career. The trouble started 6 months ago, when Emily casually mentioned Nathan during a tense Thanksgiving call. She'd been dating him for a year. Their long-distance relationship a whirlwind of late-night video calls and stolen weekends in cities like Tokyo and Paris. Nathan was everything her family should have admired: successful, charming, and fiercely supportive of Emily's dreams. But when she described him, Diane's response was a skeptical hum, followed by, "Sounds like a character from one of those romance novels you used to read." Robert, ever the pragmatist, chimed in, "A consultant halfway across the world? Convenient. Got a picture?" Emily sent them the Marina Bay photo, expecting at least a nod of approval. Instead, Diane texted back, "Photoshop's gotten really good these days. Hasn't it?" The words hit like a slap, implying Emily was so desperate for their approval she'd fake a relationship. The doubt escalated at a family dinner in Round Rock, a month before her cousin Lauren's engagement party. The Harper clan gathered at Diane's impeccably decorated dining room, the table laden with pot roast and her signature cornbread. Emily, in town for a rare visit, braced herself for the usual interrogation about her unstable freelance career. But this time, Diane took it further. As the table passed the gravy, she leaned forward with a smirk. "So, Emily, tell us about this boyfriend of yours. Still no sign of him. Huh? No photos. No calls. No nothing. I'm starting to think he's a model from one of your design magazines." The room erupted in laughter. Her Aunt Patricia's cackle the loudest. Emily's cheeks burned, her grip tightening on her water glass. Her younger brother, Jake, joined in, grinning. "Maybe he's a hologram. You know, like in those sci-fi movies." The table laughed harder, as if Emily's life was a punchline. She wanted to scream, to pull up the dozens of photos and messages from Nathan, to prove he was real. But she knew it wouldn't matter. Anything she said would be twisted into, "Emily's being dramatic," or, "She's hiding something." So, she stayed silent, her heart pounding so loud she was sure they could hear it. The worst wasn't the laughter, it was the pity in their eyes. To them, Emily was a 33-year-old spinster, chasing a fantasy career and inventing a boyfriend to fill the void. As she left the dinner, no one called after her. No one apologized. In her rental car, she called Nathan, her voice shaking. "They think you're not real," she said, half laughing, half crying. Nathan's voice was calm, steady. "Then maybe it's time I show up and shut them up." Emily chuckled. But his next words were serious. I've got a layover in San Francisco next month. Want me to crash your cousin's engagement party? Her heart skipped. You sure? They'll dissect you like a lab specimen. Nathan laughed. I'm real. I'm flying in. And I love you. They're the ones who need a reality check. The engagement party was held at a lavish resort on the shores of Lake Tahoe. A postcard-perfect setting with silk-draped tables and a jazz band playing under a glass atrium. Lauren, Emily's cousin, was the family's golden girl. Engaged to a pediatrician named Ethan, exactly the kind of stable, respectable match the Harpers worshipped. Emily arrived alone, her deep emerald dress catching the light as she stepped into the venue. Nathan was still in a meeting in San Francisco. But he'd promised to make it. She wasn't worried, she trusted him. But the moment she walked in, the whispers started. Aunt Patricia, in a sequined gown, sidled up with a fake smile. Emily, still flying solo? Or is your mystery man parachuting in from Asia? The table nearby snickered, and Emily felt the familiar sting. She didn't respond, just offered a tight nod and moved toward Lauren, who greeted her with a genuine hug. I'm so glad you're here, Lauren whispered. Don't let them get to you. Emily smiled, but she knew the real test was coming. The party was in full swing when Diane, ever the orchestrator, pushed Emily toward the stage for a toast. Come on, Emily, say a few words. It'd be odd if the eldest cousin didn't speak, she said, her voice syrupy but her eyes sharp. Emily's stomach twisted, but she took the mic, facing a room of familiar faces who doubted her for years. Lauren, she began, her voice steady, watching you so loved and celebrated today is beautiful. Not everyone gets that kind of support. So hold onto it, it's rare. The room went quiet, her words hanging in the air. A few clapped, but most just stared, expecting her to falter. She stepped down, her heart racing, and then it happened, a low hum in the distance, growing louder, sharper, until it was unmistakable. The sound of helicopter blades slicing through the Nevada sky. Heads turned, glasses clinked, and murmurs rippled through the crowd. A sleek black helicopter descended onto the resort's landing pad, just beyond the golden aspens lining the lawn. Aunt Patricia's champagne flute froze mid-air. Diane clutched the tablecloth, her knuckles white. Lauren's eyes widened, darting to Emily, who stood calm, a faint smile tugging at her lips. The helicopter door opened, and Nathan Carter stepped out. His charcoal suit tailored to perfection, his dark hair ruffled by the wind. He carried a small, elegantly wrapped gift box, his stride confident as he crossed the lawn. Every eye followed him, the jazz band faltering for a beat. Sorry I'm late, Nathan said, his deep voice cutting through the stunned silence. Air traffic. A few nervous chuckles broke the tension, but most of the room was frozen. Nathan reached Emily, taking her hand with a gentle squeeze. Did I make it in time? He whispered. She nodded, her eyes locking briefly with Diane's, who sat rigid in her chair. Lips parted. Nathan turned to the MC with a disarming smile. No speech from me, but if anyone's still wondering if I'm real, I hope this clears it up. The room erupted, not in laughter, but in gasps, whispers, and a palpable shift. Emily felt it like a weightlifting. The years of doubt, the snide comments, the pitying glances, all crumbling in the face of Nathan's undeniable presence. Nathan didn't stop at the entrance. He moved through the room like he owned it, shaking hands and charming the skeptics. He started with Aunt Patricia, who'd mocked Emily's imaginary boyfriend for months. You must be Patricia, he said, his smile warm. Lauren mentioned you're a wedding planner extraordinaire. I just partnered with a venue in Dubai. Maybe we should swap notes. Patricia, usually quick with a jab, blushed and nodded, speechless. Next was Uncle Greg, who'd once said Emily made it all up for attention. Nathan clapped his shoulder. Greg, I hear you started the biggest hardware chain in Central Texas. That's the kind of grit I admire. Greg, caught off guard, grinned and offered Nathan a drink. Even Jake, Emily's brother, who'd called Nathan a hologram, hovered nearby, muttering, didn't expect him to be like that. Diane stood in the corner, her wine glass untouched, her eyes darting between Emily and Nathan. He didn't avoid her, Mrs. Harper, he said, extending a hand. It's a pleasure. Emily's told me so much about your family. Diane managed a stiff nod, glancing at Emily before saying, I've heard about you too. Things are clearer now. It wasn't an apology, but for Diane, it was as close as it got. Robert, always stoic, approached later, sizing Nathan up like a contractor inspecting a foundation. Nathan met his gaze. Sir, your work on Round Rock's west side is legendary. That kind of vision shapes communities. Robert's jaw softened, and he shook Nathan's hand with a rare flicker of approval. The party's tone shifted. The whispers turned to curiosity, the pity to intrigue. Emily was no longer the family's wayward dreamer, she was the woman with a real, impressive man by her side. Lauren pulled her aside, grinning. He's better than I imagined. You didn't have to say a word, he changed the room. Emily nodded. It's not about changing them. I just needed them to stop laughing. Chapter 3. A New Dawn. In the weeks after the party, Emily expected the usual silence from her family. But this time, things were different. In the family group chat, usually filled with Diane's casserole recipes and Jake's fishing photos, a new post appeared, a picture of Emily and Nathan by Lauren's engagement cake. Posted by Diane, the caption read, Guess Emily's got a keeper after all. Aunt Patricia commented, handsome and sharp. Robert, who never touched social media, sent Emily a private message with a link to a Vogue article titled, The Women Redefining American Luxury Design. Her name was in it, alongside a glowing review of her Aspen Hotel project. His message was simple, good read. Your take on minimalism was sharp. Emily stared at the words, her coffee growing cold. It was the first time her father had acknowledged her work without a lecture about risky choices. Then came the call from Diane. Emily was on her balcony, sketching a Miami beach house, when her phone buzzed. Are you busy? Diane asked, skipping pleasantries. I need advice for Patricia's den. Cream or taupe for the walls? Emily nearly laughed. You're asking me about design? Diane hesitated. I saw your Instagram posts. They're professional. Emily leaned back, a smile spreading. Cream. If the windows face south. Diane actually took notes, then added, I was wrong, Emily. I thought there was only one way to succeed. I see now there's more. Emily's throat tightened. Nathan seems solid. Diane continued, when's the wedding? Emily chuckled. We're not rushing, but you'll know when we do. Before hanging up, Diane said, if you need help with flowers, I'm your gal. It wasn't a full embrace, but it was a door cracking open. The real turning point came 3 months later, when Emily was invited to speak at the Global Business Leadership Summit in Dubai. She'd share the stage with innovators, including Nathan, who was speaking on urban aviation trends. Her topic, building a luxury design brand from scratch. Without venture capital, Emily mailed 2 summit invitations to her parents, each with a handwritten note. You once asked if I was serious about my life. This is my answer. No email, no warning, just the ivory envelopes, sealed with her monogrammed wax stamp. Diane and Robert arrived in Dubai on a shimmering afternoon. Nathan picked them up in a sleek electric SUV, driving them to Emily's 50th floor apartment overlooking the Persian Gulf. The space was a masterpiece, ivory walls, teak furniture, and a balcony framing the city's skyline. Diane ran her fingers along a hand-carved console, pausing at a vibrant abstract painting Emily had created for a Shanghai gallery. This place, she started, then stopped. Robert stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring at the sea. I never pictured you living like this, he said, his voice low. Emily poured them mint tea and gave a tour. The rooftop gardens, the infinity pool, the desert views. They said little, but their eyes said enough. That night, Emily took the summit stage in a tailored ivory suit, her hair swept into a low chignon. Nathan sat in the front row with her parents, the spotlight casting a soft glow over the 400-person audience. She didn't talk about awards or clients. She spoke of being underestimated, of sitting at family dinners feeling invisible, of building a life on passion when no one believed in her. Some people get support, she said, others fight through doubt, but if you believe in your path, Don't wait for permission, just keep walking. The room was silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Diane fidgeted with her scarf. Robert's hands were clasped, his eyes fixed on her. After the talk, Emily was swarmed, executives wanting collaborations. A publisher pitching a book deal. Robert stood beside her, nodding at strangers like her personal bodyguard. At dinner on a rooftop overlooking Dubai's twinkling lights, Diane turned to Nathan. Thank you for believing in her when we didn't know how. Nathan smiled. No thanks needed. Emily did this herself. I just got to watch. Emily caught Diane's eye, and for the first time, she saw pride, raw, unmistakable pride. Backstage, Robert approached, hands in his pockets. I used to think art was a pipe dream, he said, but tonight, I saw how people looked at you. You're not just making pretty rooms, you're building something real. Something valuable. He paused, then said, I'm proud of you, Emily. The words landed like a long-awaited sunrise. Emily nodded, her voice steady. Thank you, Dad. Diane joined them, smoothing Emily's blazer like she did when Emily was a kid. You were incredible, she said softly. I was so scared you'd fail. I didn't see you were already winning. I won't doubt you again. They stood together on the balcony, Dubai's lights flickering below. No grand hugs, just a quiet understanding. Epilogue. Freedom found. Emily didn't need her family's approval to shine. But their recognition was a milestone, the end of a road paved with doubt. Her success wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about living so authentically that denial became impossible. She'd built a life of her own design. Brick by brick, sketch by sketch, with Nathan by her side not as a savior but as a partner. The summit organizers later asked to feature her speech in next year's program. Quoting her, "Don't wait for a green light. Keep walking. Let them catch up." Back in Chicago, Emily sat in her studio. A Greek resort project open on her screen. Her phone buzzed with a Singapore client. Her calendar packed with Florence and Tokyo. She felt light, unburdened. The invitation she'd sent her parents sat in her desk drawer. A reminder not of their doubt but of the night they finally saw her. Emily Harper had won, not by arguing, but by being undeniable. And in that victory, she found freedom, not just to live, but to be seen as the woman she'd always known she was.